Okay, and I'm going to hand over to Alison, who's just going to do a bit of a welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. So welcome to everybody. Those of you that haven't met me before, I am interim chair of the DYW Dundee and Angus Regional Group. I have been really closely involved with the brilliant work that the team at DYW do and the partnership working that we do, because with my other hat on, I'm chief executive at Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce. I am also in my role, have the pleasure to be involved in groups such as the Dundee Fair Work and Enterprise Board, and I've been heavily involved in helping out with the employer voice and employability for a long time. This is an event that we are doing in partnership with DYW, and it's part of the National Equalities Campaign. And that's, you know, DYW locally as part of their work on a national level are running that, and it's my absolute pleasure to be involved in the event today. This is very much about promoting inclusive employment with a particular focus on recruiting and supporting people with additional needs. It's very much about helping employers understand the support that's available and just making sure we can all be as equal as possible in the work that we do. As Sarah said, there's going to be a few speakers give their perspective on this particular piece of work, and then we're going to break out into discussion groups and then have the chance just to have a bit of a chat through some of the issues and just hopefully we can learn from that. But also, as you know, we're recording the session so that we can help other people get the chance to kind of be part of this wider discussion and topic. It's really, really important for us to be discussing this kind of issue today. The Resolution Foundation's recent research has found a disproportionate impact of the COVID crisis, particularly on young workers, in terms of their loss of employment and being placed on furlough. And 1/3 of 18 to 24-year-old employees have lost jobs or been furloughed, compared to 1 in 6. Now this says prime age adult. I think that's all of us, isn't it? I wonder what prime age actually means. But shockingly, disabled 16 to 24-year-olds have got the second lowest employment rate. So that's 43.2% of any age group, which is shocking. The highest unemployment rate at 20.8%, and are more than twice as likely to be unemployed than non-disabled 16 to 24-year-olds. Disabled people are also more likely to work in industries that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And, you know, again, in our local area, we see those sectors that are particularly badly hit, and it's important that we do as much as we can to intervene and help with investment in those areas. DYW is doing a lot of local work and are really, really pleased with the way that businesses have been responding to call for support, whether that's from, you know, the connection into schools and colleges, whether it's engagement online. There's been an awful lot of employer focused activity, and we're really pleased and proud about that. DYW is also really closely aligned to the Young Persons Guarantee, and we're in close contact and talking with both the local authorities about what their Young Persons Guarantee work is going to look like for 2021 and 21-22, and there will be an awful lot more resource put into that work over the next few months. This will include additional resources to directly support schools, as well as a new equalities training programme. In addition, the DYW team is working closely with the local authorities to appoint new schools coordinators right at the moment, and we are looking forward to working out what that work actually means and will help support schools, and not just schools but the colleges, as we look at pathways into employment for young local people. The Chamber and my colleague Donna Bell is working really hard with partners on the KICKSTART programme. So for those of you that haven't heard of that, that is the UK government's funding to support young unemployed people into 6-month placements, where the UK government is funding 25 hours per week over a 6-month period for young people to be able to be given a placement with a local employer. And we've got a significant number of local employers right across Dundee and Angus, hundreds of local employers that are really keen to get involved in that. The Chamber is currently waiting for word on over 100 jobs that we have put bids into the DWP for funding support for that, and I know that Dundee City Council and many other gateway organisations in our local area are in a similar position. So in times of real difficulty and hardship for people, this is such an interesting and exciting programme for us to be involved in. So I'm very proud of the work that we've all collectively been doing on that. And I know I've said a lot about the DYW team already, but they are a hugely brilliant resource for our employers and our young people to really connect, and have done such a lot of good work. And I'm looking forward to today's event and just hearing a little bit more about what our speakers have got and what they can tell us on this topic. So enough from me. I'm going to introduce our speakers, and I will attempt to come in and out and kind of just introduce them and then get myself back on mute and get out of their way. But so first up is Jane Duffy from NHS Tayside. So Jane is Occupational Health and Safety Advisor for Healthy Working Lives and the Workplace Programme. Easy for you to say, Jane. Jane, if you would like to unmute and come in, and then when you're finished, I will come back and introduce DWP. So Jane.
That's lovely. Thank you, Alison. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. It's a pleasure to have been invited along to give a speech about what our perspective is regarding employing people who have got underlying health conditions and disabilities. And what I hope to do is to challenge people to think a bit differently about reasonable adjustments in the workplace. So I'm going to pop a little presentation on screen, if that's okay. I will, there we go, and I'm just going to change the slides over. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to think roughly about what you've done with your day so far and how many people are actually working differently because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Is it, has it impacted on all of you from a work perspective, and how has that impacted? Now, whatever we discuss today, we'll have further discussion in the discussion rooms, and hopefully I'll be able to share a case study with you about how reasonable adjustments in the workplace can actually be applied. What I'd also like to ask you to do is think about the different barriers to working for reasonable adjustments, etc., and why you think there's barriers in place to employing people who may have disabilities or underlying health conditions. But in terms of COVID-19, businesses have really had to adapt in many ways to respond to a change in customer demand. A lot of them have had to change their business models. They've moved from possibly retailing in shops to online. They've moved from restaurants to takeaway facilities. They've managed to create a more flexible working environment in terms of working from home. There's been a greater reliance on technology, which we may not have seen had it not been for the pandemic. And a lot of these factors include allowing more time to complete tasks. So, for example, in restaurants, takeaways, cafes, you're seeing a lot more time in between tables and turnover for cleaning for cleaning down the surfaces. We're seeing a change in how work is carried out. And basically we're seeing an awful lot more people working from home. Some people are going to have to get additional supervision and extended training. If you think about apprentices, for example, a lot of their hands-on practice has been protracted slightly because they're getting less hands-on experience in the workplace. People are having to access additional equipment and resources, and flexible working from home has also been a major factor. We've seen businesses having to create more space for social distancing and changing accessibility, and there's been a great deal of modifying the environmental layout to create that space and to allow for safe working, etc. So I think it's fair to say that these changes happened really quickly and pretty much overnight as a consequence of the pandemic. So I would like you to bear that in mind and how that's impacted on you. I'd like to speak to you a wee bit about the definition of disability as well. The definition is you're disabled under the Equality Act 2010 if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial or long-term negative effect on your ability to carry out normal daily duties. But what do we mean by that? Basically, long-term is 12 months or more, but quite often people get a diagnosis where actually they may not have a prognosis that will see them beyond 12 months. So some conditions will actually start from the point of diagnosis, for example, HIV, cancer, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, etc. And what do we mean by substantial? That's more than just minor or trivial, but it has an impact on normal daily living activities. And the question is, well, you know, what are normal daily activities? Funnily enough, normal daily activities are things that we all do habitually, regularly, without thinking about it. We maintain a safe environment, we talk to each other, we communicate, we breathe, we eat, we drink, we go to the toilet, we dress. So basically, if you have any of these things impacted upon as a consequence of a condition, realistically, your normal daily activities have been impacted. And what kind of reasonable adjustments would we see to accommodate people who have actually got underlying medical conditions and disabilities? Well, reasonable adjustments, funnily enough, involve things like allowing people more time to complete tasks, change how work is carried out, accessing additional work resources and equipment, flexible working, modifying the environment or layout, additional supervision and extended training if necessary, and creating accessibility. Now, I think you'll find that these factors actually resonate with what a lot of the changes are for the COVID-19 pandemic. And my question to you is, if a workplace could put in reasonable adjustments and adaptations as quickly for a pandemic, why can't they do it for somebody who's disabled? They're not difficult, they're not challenging, and a lot of them are actually at no cost. DWP will speak to you about access to work, but basically I want to actually challenge you to think about why are there barriers when in actual fact workplaces were able to adapt so quickly to a pandemic, and yet they see a hindrance when it comes to disabled employees. I'll finish off at that, but I really do look forward to seeing you in the discussion rooms, having a further chat. I'm happy to go into further detail, show you a case study, etc., about how simple reasonable adjustments can be. But I think on reflection, when you think about how your own workplace has had to adapt to accommodate the COVID-19 pandemic for business survival as much as anything else as well, it does prove that it can be done. And one final thing, there's a lot of people in work who, when they were employed, didn't have underlying medical conditions or disabilities. And how would you feel if you were to be diagnosed or develop a disability and your employer failed to accommodate you? Thanks very much.
Jane, thank you so much for that. Really thought-provoking, but straightforward all at the same time, which I think is part of your message. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so our next section is hearing from DWP North East Region. So there are three ladies that are going to kind of speak and do their bit as part of this session. So luckily you only have to hear me introduce one and then they're going to hand over to each other. So Aileen Cunningham is up first, followed by Tracy Scullion, and then we've got Jennifer McKenna. So Aileen, over to you first.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aileen Cunningham. I have a disability competent lead in the northeast of Scotland, and today I'm going to give you a bit of information about disability confident and access to work. Now, I do have a colleague who is going to put the presentation up and be our page turner today for the three of us. So I wonder if Stuart is there. No. Now I've got a presentation here, and I wonder if I could just share that with everybody then. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah.
Yep.
That's fine, thank you. Sorry about that. Right, disability confident. Some of you might already know about disability confident. Some may not at all, but to start off with an introduction, the words diversity and inclusion are often associated with corporate social responsibility, but creating a business environment that is accessible to everyone and truly embraces the differences that make us all unique is about more than simply doing the right thing. So why consider being disability confident? Well, we want to help you find and keep the right people for your business, and disability confident helps you attract, retain and value disabled employees and those with long-term health conditions. And you may know that the government's working towards getting 1 million more disabled people into work by 2027. So disability confidence scheme can actually help support you through that. The scheme helps employers recruit and retain great people, draw from the widest possible pool of talent to make sure that everybody's included, secure high quality staff who are skilled, loyal and hardworking, because as we know, a lot of people with disabilities have an awful lot to offer. Improve employee morale and commitment by demonstrating that you treat all employees fairly, and part of that is obviously giving your employees information about health conditions, and also making them aware of what the issues are with somebody who has got a health condition. It also helps customers and other businesses identify those employers who are committed to equality in the workplace. So there are 3 levels of disability confident. Disability confident committed level 1, employer level 2 and leader level 3. And you can progress through these levels in less than the 3 years that you're allowed to remain on each level, but you have to go through them in sequence. So once you've signed up as Disability Confident Committed, which you can do through the gov.uk website, you'll receive a certificate in recognition of the fact that you've done that. You'll receive a badge and other information that you can put on your website and on email signatures. And there's also a self-assessment pack available to help you continue to move up the levels to become a disability confident employer and ultimately a leader, where you'll be acting as a champion within your local communities. So assistance available to you. There's support from your local job centres, and I've said free of charge here because some employers have felt in the past that there may be a charge involved, but we have local employer advisors and disability employment advisors who can help you and provide more detailed information and direction. There's also the gov.uk website where you can also see who has signed up already. And when you've signed up, you'll receive regular newsletters to keep you up to date with what's going on. So why not join the 18,000 organisations that have already signed up? You can play a leading role in changing attitudes for the better. So changing behaviours and cultures in your own business, in networks and communities, and reaping the benefits of inclusive recruitment practices. So I'll now move on to just give you a bit of information about access to work, which actually ties in very nicely with what Jane was talking about earlier. So access to work supports people with health conditions or disabilities and their employers. It can provide practical support and advice to help overcome barriers to work, and there are grants that may help with additional costs beyond reasonable adjustments. So your employee or prospective employee can get help with money towards extra travel costs, aids and equipment, adapting any equipment to make it easier for them to use, and quite often an interpreter or other support at a job interview is available. There's a wide range of other support workers, and there's also the Access to Work mental health support service, obviously for mental health support there. So virtually anyone can get help if they have a disability of some sort, and it's for those in work but also those looking for work, and there's also help, as I said, for the employers as well. So the benefits of Access to Work: disabled people and those with a health condition can offer a great deal to an employer. However, some may need extra help to make work possible. So some of the benefits are: it enables an employer to retain valued workers, and it can help people realise their potential, and it's good for everyone by helping people to get into and stay in work. So I've mentioned gov.uk earlier. It's a great site to go into to get more information, so you can get full details about Access to Work, checking eligibility, and for anyone that wants to apply for assistance, you can do so online. So thank you very much for listening today. I've obviously only been able to give you a little bit of information. There's a lot more information available. So either have a look on the gov.uk website, or if you want to get in touch with myself, and my details will be sent out to you. So thank you very much for that, and I'm now going to pass over to my colleague Tracy, who's going to talk to you about mentoring circles.
Thanks very much, Eileen. I'm Tracy. I'm an employer and partnership advisor with the Department of Work and Pensions. And what I'm going to do is just give you a whistle-stop tour of mentoring circles. And what this is, it's an initiative that we're encouraging employers to sign up to help our most disadvantaged job seekers and young people. So we have a slideshow that will just be coming up very shortly. Just to give you a bit of background, mentoring circles was first launched in 2018 in England, and it was for Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. It's been a huge success, so the Minister for Employment's decided to roll it out nationally for all 16 to 24-year-olds, and we've had quite a lot of success in Dundee and Angus with that so far. So, just to give you a bit of an idea of what a mentoring circle is, you'll be familiar with the term mentoring, and how we make it a circle is that rather than one-to-one mentoring, we ask you to mentor a group of 8 to 10 youngsters. That's not rigid, that can be flexible if it's a small business. What we're aware of is that we're dealing with an awful lot of young people who are maybe from areas of social or financial deprivation, or otherwise really disadvantaged in the labour market. And what this initiative does is it bridges the gap and it brings employers together with young people. So the actual model itself comprises of 3 meetings, and the employers lead the sessions. The sessions are 2 hours long and they're spread over 3 weeks. So we're just looking for a total commitment from the employer for 6 hours, and they would work with the same group of customers over these 3 weeks. The Department of Work and Pensions really takes a back seat in this initiative, because that's the youngsters' preference really. We're just facilitating that meeting with them and the employer, but we are there to keep you right. We've got slide decks and briefing packs and an outline of the programme to keep you right. So moving on to the next one, the whole aim of this really is to increase young people's confidence, their motivation and their job search skills, and ultimately we want to help move them closer to work. A lot of young people maybe don't have role models around, or they don't have a strong support network. So they see people in employment who've made it, you know, they've got the job, the house, the car, the goldfish, whatever, as having made it in life, so you are a role model to them.
Tracy.
Oh,
so sorry,
okay?
Sorry to interrupt. Okay? Sorry, the presentation hasn't come up.
Oh, has it not?
No, sorry, Stuart. I think what you're actually sharing is your folder.
Oh,
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Guys, I'm so sorry about that. Is that better? No.
Nothing's coming up.
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm having problems at my end with this. Bear with me one
Don't worry,
second.
I can do it without it. Well, I'll just keep.
Do you want, if you carry on without, then we can share the presentations afterwards.
No problem. Okay, we'll keep going. So during the mentoring circle, what we're looking at is for an employer to share their experience with the young people and give them advice about CVs, job applications, and a chance to practice the dreaded mock interviews, which always goes down well. So how a mentoring circle, how does it look? It can look very different. Every mentoring circle will look very different, and it's really up to the employer what they want to deliver. But one of the things that we find is most useful is in the first session, if the employer shares their story, because a lot of the time this will be the first time a young person has had any interaction with an employer, so it may be like pulling teeth for the first 20 minutes. So what we like is for the employer to tell their story. It's a good icebreaker, and it's a chance to get across that, you know, although you are in a solid job at the moment, what challenges have you overcome? What hurdles have you faced in life to get where you are? What jobs have you really, really not wanted to do, but they've served a purpose? So they really appreciate your side of things, and it really makes an impact on them. We also like employers to discuss CVs, application forms, the usual employability skills, but more so from the point of view of getting them to look at your recruitment practices from an employer's perspective. So it's the little things like, this is why I wouldn't consider your CV and I would throw it in without reading it, or this is what puts me off when somebody walks into an interview. It's the little inside nitty-gritty information that they get the most out of, I would say. So we have had feedback from young people that have taken part in mentoring circles, and it's all really positive stuff along the lines of it's made them feel more confident, they feel a bit more inspired. They would now apply for jobs that they maybe wouldn't have before. And from an employer's point of view, they felt that it was a good developmental opportunity for them, particularly for maybe staff that have or are looking at promotion or have recently taken on line management responsibilities. But also what we've heard from a few employers is that it lets them look at their recruitment processes, because they're getting a chance to see things from an applicant's point of view, and it makes them think, you know, are we attracting the most diverse range of talent that we possibly can? So that's kind of mentoring circles in a nutshell and what we're trying to sell to employers at the moment. And what I'll do is I'll hand you on to my colleague Jennifer, who's going to give you a brief overview of KICKSTART.
Thanks, Tracy. I also have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure how, Stuart, are you going to be able to manage that, or will I just go on without it?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to start, see if it works. Yeah. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Great. So hi, my name's Jennifer McKenna. I work in the Wellgate Job Centre as the Employer and Partnership Advisor. Today I'm going to give you an overview on KICKSTART. Thanks for Alison for touching on that. So the KICKSTART scheme is a £2 billion fund to create hundreds of thousands of high quality 6 months work placement for young people. Funding is available for each job, will cover the relevant national minimum wage for 25 hours a week, plus the associated employer, national insurance and pension contributions. There will also be funding available to support young people to develop new skills and help move them into sustained employment after they have completed their KICKSTART funded job. Through the scheme, you, the employer, will be able to access a large pool of young people with potential and are ready for an opportunity. Great. So, how to get involved? Employers from all industries and across private, public and voluntary sectors can get involved. All the information you need is online on gov.uk/KICKSTART. You will also be involved in the interview process. You will decide on who the best person is for the job. Bids must be for a minimum of 30 job placements. If you're unable to offer this many, then you can partner up with other organisations to reach the minimum number. So the criteria for KICKSTART funding is the job placement must be a new job. It cannot be replacing an existing or planned vacancy or have an effect on existing employees to reduce or lose their employment. The job must be for a minimum of 25 hours per week for 6 months. However, there are exemptions for claimants with health conditions who cannot work the full 25 hours a week, and this can be discussed at the interview stage. They will be paid at least the national minimum wage for their age group, and the role should not really require any extensive training before they start. When applying for the Kickstart funding, you must include how you're planning on helping them to develop their skills and experience, with support to look for long-term work, support with CV and interview preparation, and also training to develop their skills such as teamwork, organisation and communication as part of their role. So, does this all sound great? Now you need to know how to apply. If you're able to offer 30 or more spaces, you can make a direct bid on the main Kickstart website. For fewer than 30 spaces, you can still apply, but you must partner up with either other employers or a gateway such as a local authority, a chamber of commerce or a trade body. To find an existing gateway is very easy to do. You just again go on to the gov.uk/Kickstart website, and you will be directed how to apply as an employer with 29 or less job placements. It will ask you what sector your job placement is in. You can search for the Kickstart gateway by postcode, county or country. You will then be presented with a list and you decide who you want to contact. You can also join a group of other employers nominating someone to carry out the responsibility of a representative. So not only will the government pay the employee, but you will also be paid £1,500 funding per job placement. This is for set-up costs and to support the young person to develop their employability skills. So if you get someone else to do some of this for you, such as your Kickstart gateway, you will have to agree how you're going to share the money. If you decide you can offer 30 or more places, or you want to act as a representative, an additional £300 for each job placement is paid to cover admin costs. So just some additional information that you may need to know. So the young person must be claiming universal credit to qualify for Kickstart funding. The employer will decide on the recruitment process. A normal interview process should be followed. It has to be a real interview. The employer makes the final decision on who they want to hire, and the placement must be right for the young person and the business. If a placement does not work out, we can put forward other candidates for the role. And placements can start up till December 2021, with the scheme ending in summer 2022. A lot of the information is now starting to get updated on the gov.uk website. So we've now got on there tips for making a successful Kickstart scheme application, guidance on choosing the right Kickstart gateway, and there's also the terms and conditions for employers and gateways. Receiving the Kickstart scheme grant from the Department of Work and Pensions has also just recently been added. Thank you. That's me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's always a wee challenge when you're trying to find your unmute button. But, you know, thank you so much to each of those speakers for covering a different aspect of DWP. Much appreciated. Next up, we have Social Security Scotland. So Nadia Bailey is Senior Resourcing Manager at that agency, headquartered in Dundee, and she's going to share why having an inclusive and fair recruitment policy is good for business. Nadia.
Thank you. Just bear with me a moment while I share my screen. It will hopefully work for us today. And I will move that to present.
Looks good.
There we go. Is that coming up okay for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. Thank you, though it's just been done, but I'll introduce myself again. So my name's Nadia Bailey, and I am the Senior Resourcing Manager for Social Security Scotland. So it's basically my job to recruit and resource this agency. So we're quite a new organisation, so I'll tell you a little about what we do, just for general awareness. And essentially what I'm here to do today is to give you an employer's perspective on the benefits of having a diverse workforce and on having an inclusive culture. I'll also tell you a wee bit about how we go about attracting and recruiting a diverse workforce. So it will hopefully give you a couple of ideas of how you could go about doing this. And I'm more than happy to take some questions when we do the breakout sessions, or you can contact me afterwards as well. So a bit of context on who Social Security Scotland are. So we're an executive agency of the Scottish Government, so we're a civil service organisation. We've been created to administer the Scottish social security system effectively. And our promise is that we will deliver support built around you when and where you need it. So when we're fully operational, because we are a new organisation, we only started in, officially in September 2018. When we're fully operational, we'll have 1,900 people. And so far, we employ 800 people. So if you can do the maths, I have a lot of work ahead of me. So you can expect that I do need to think about how I'm going to go about recruitment. So I'm going to tell you just briefly a bit about civil service recruitment principles. And the reason for this is these principles really underpin our inclusive approach to recruitment. And I'm telling you about these because you might want to think about, could you put in place some principles that might underpin your recruitment practices to help ensure that you are recruiting inclusively? So in the civil service, we need to make sure that all of our appointments are made on merit and on the basis of fair and open competition. So merit means the appointment we have to appoint the best person for the job, the person who's performed best throughout the assessment approach. Fair means that there should be no bias in the assessment of our candidates. We should be impartial and we should apply any assessments consistently. And open means that the appointment should be available for people to see. We should advertise it publicly so that anyone that wishes to apply can apply. So while these might be the civil service recruitment principles, some of these might work well in your organisation. So do think about, how are you advertising your jobs? Are they visible to people? Are they getting to see them? Because that will help you get more applications if they are visible. So how are we actually going about recruiting a diverse workforce? So I'll tell you a bit about what we're doing in Social Security Scotland, and feel free to steal with pride. Go ahead, do some of the same things. None of this is a big state secret, don't worry. So I'll tell you about some of the things we're doing. Some of them will work better in a big organisation, and some of them will work better for small organisations. We're kind of doing a bit of everything because we have so much recruitment to do. So in Social Security Scotland, we want our workforce to represent the people of Scotland because they're our customers, they're our clients, they're the people that we are representing. So we want people who are going to deliver a service based on equality, respect, dignity, and human rights. So the ways that we do this is quite a few. You can see lots of bullets there. So we attend a lot of job fairs. So I'd really encourage employers, when you're going through a lot of recruitment, do think about going along to a jobs fair. It's a great way to meet people who are looking for jobs. It's a great way to help people know that you're out there and you're looking for employees. One of the things we do is we run candidate workshops. So these are workshops where we basically help people understand our recruitment process. We help them understand how we recruit and what evidence that we're looking for throughout that recruitment process. We find these really help people who have been out of work for some time, and especially help younger people who perhaps haven't been in work yet. And they're a great way to help level that playing field for people. We also work with employability providers as another way to level the playing field and encourage applications from a diverse group of people rather than people that perhaps are already in work. We want both. We want a good mix of people. We provide candidate packs as a way to help everyone get the same level of information about how to apply for a job with us. And we also accept experience from different areas. So not just work experience, we'll accept experience from people's personal lives, from volunteering work, or perhaps from school or university or college as well. And the reason for that is we recognise that it's not just about experience, it's also about what potential people have. And actually sometimes the most valuable experience that we get isn't always from work. So this helps us really open up the pool of talent so that we're considering as many people as possible when it comes to recruiting. Now, some things that would work well in smaller organisations as well as larger organisations is think about where you're advertising your jobs. So we try and do some targeted advertising. For example, we advertise some of our jobs on, or as many of our jobs as possible, on jobs boards that are targeted towards particular protected groups. For example, there's jobs boards out there that have been created by people with disabilities for people with disabilities. So that can be a really good way for you to make sure that your adverts are being seen by as many people as possible. We work with Inclusion Scotland and we also work with Fair Start Scotland. Both organisations, we work with them to provide internship programmes. So Inclusion Scotland work with people with disabilities, and Fair Start Scotland offer placements to people who have been out of work for a period of time. And they can be great ways for you to find diverse talent for your organisation. And you've heard a bit about Disability Confident already, so do think about accreditations for your organisation. We're a Disability Confident employer, as well as a carer positive employer. We recruit with conviction, which is that we will accept people with convictions, or most convictions, as long as they're not fraudulent, for example, given the nature of what work we do. And also living wage as well, so we're a living wage employer. So have a look at these accreditations. Are you eligible for them? If you are, there's no harm in signing up, because it tells people that you are committed to having an inclusive workforce. And then finally, you've heard about reasonable adjustments as well. So we think about these from the start, you know, right at the start when we're doing candidate workshops, when we're going to jobs fairs. How can we make sure that there's adjustments in place so that everyone can get access to the information that we're sharing? But then also throughout the recruitment process, you know, making adjustments for people doesn't just happen the day they start work with you, but how can you make sure that maybe it's sharing information with them and giving them more time to read that before an interview or before an assessment centre. So really think about reasonable adjustments throughout the whole process. So what positive outcomes have we actually had from this? So we do a lot of work locally in Dundee, in Glasgow as well, but in Dundee as our headquarters location, to attract a diverse pool of talent. So we do things like we offer internships, we run apprenticeships, and we do student placements as well. So through the work that we've been doing over the last 2 years to build this organisation, we are seeing an upwards trend in representing people with disabilities, and that's been consistent since we started as an organisation. And we're also starting to see an upwards trend now of people from ethnic minority backgrounds as well. And those are two areas that we really wanted to make improvements in, so that we can be representative of the people of Scotland. We now have 15 Fair Start Scotland placements across Glasgow and Dundee, and we're finding that that's a really, really good programme, and I encourage people to have a look at it. And we have 10 modern apprentices in Dundee so far. We also took in 8 student placements in Dundee in 2020, and we continue to work with both Dundee and Abertay universities to hopefully offer some more next year. So I'm going to finish up telling you why I think it's important to have a diverse workforce. I've told you a wee bit about how you can go about doing it, but why would you do this? Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do, but there's also huge business benefits to it. So studies do show that organisations with a diverse workforce outperform those who are less diverse. So we're all in varying different types of organisations and businesses, but we all want our businesses and organisations to perform, and diversity and inclusion is one of the ways that you can drive that. So there's many benefits to improving the diversity of your workforce and creating an inclusive culture. So for example, better representation of your customer base. If your customers can see that you represent them, they're much more likely to come back and keep using your business or keep engaging with your business. There's higher innovation and from diverse ideas and increased creativity. Who wouldn't want increased creativity in their organisation? And of course, with more diverse ideas and increased creativity comes faster problem solving. You've got more people with different ways of thinking, so between them they can come up with solutions much more quickly. You'll have a better company reputation, which is always a positive. And of course, if people feel more included in the organisation, you will have higher employee engagement, and that will reduce your turnover, which will in turn reduce the amount of time, energy and money that you have to later spend on more recruitment. So overall, there's just huge benefits in recruiting a diverse workforce and having an inclusive culture. And you know, for a long time we've talked about, I think it's been about 20 years, there's been this idea of a war of talent. But if you open up your organisation to more people, that war in talent reduces significantly, because there's so much talent out there that if you're not being inclusive and you're not recruiting inclusively, you're missing out on. So really strongly encourage you to think about what things can you put in place in your organisation. Thank you. that was a whistle-stop tour, so I'm more than happy to answer questions later, and my email address will be shared afterwards as well, so you can drop me a line.
Great, Nadia, thank you so much. And our last speaker before we go into our breakout sessions is Sheila Han. So Sheila is an HR advisor with NHS Tayside, but as well as doing that, she's also an elected councillor with Angus Council. So Sheila, over to you. Looking forward to hearing your experience as somebody from the employee's point of view.
Thank you very much, Alison. When I got the contributors brief for this event today, the immediate thing that came into my head was employment of disabled people. What's the recipe for success? And I couldn't believe it last night was the final of the Great British Bake Off. But suffice it to say, you'll hear from my story. And I'm sorry if somebody hasn't heard the results yet, but I would definitely not be the second Scottish winner of that award. What I thought I would do to start with is, we've obviously today we've heard a lot of what the ingredients now are for successful employment of disabled people. That recipe has definitely changed significantly over the years, and there's been some ingredients that have been easier to find than others. So I thought I would start with the two key issues that I faced over the years trying to get employment. I'm totally blind. I lost the sight that I did have when I was 17. So this meant I had an impact on the qualifications I got at school. I got enough to go to university, but I didn't get enough to do the law degree that I had hoped law would have been my career. And when I went to university, I had a second issue, because I was told I couldn't do educational psychology because blind people can't drive, and I wouldn't be able to observe behaviour. So I ended up doing a degree that I didn't really want to do, and found myself in a position, what do I do now, in my early 20s. So I kind of bobbed along doing bits and pieces of voluntary work until I did get some experience in local government in short term for fixed placements, and it worked out. I ended up doing equalities work, and again that was an area that I didn't intend to do, but it's somewhere that kept on coming back to me, and I'll come back to that later. So for my experience, qualifications, they were a bit difficult to get, but not anywhere near as difficult to obtain as actual work experience. And I was reflecting on this in terms of the experience of my own visually impaired children who are now all in their 20s. My oldest daughter applied to do medicine, passed the assessment centre, but her sight wasn't good enough for her to be allowed to do the course. So still that issue there about qualifications. She did do pharmacy and got first, but when it came to the practical side of it as well, because reasonable adjustments weren't there, and I can't emphasise enough how important reasonable adjustments are in the workplace. So she's ended up doing another job, and at least she's gotten into employment, and I'm really proud of her for having done so. So back to my own experience again, the biggest hurdle for me was, how would you get the experience that everybody's looking for if you can't get the experience to get the experience? So it was kind of that dilemma, and that kept on coming back time and time again. So I felt like in my 30s, I was a job hunting chameleon, because what I ended up doing, I've ended up with 5 degrees, and it's not because I like being a student particularly, or I'm particularly brainy, that's not the case, but I kept on trying to find new ways of reinventing myself to try and then sort of match the voluntary work experience I had with qualifications. At least though, by the time 2010 came around, I had done my law degree, I'd done my diploma in legal practice. So that led me to thinking, well, why is it that I chose law as my, my first choice of career? And I've kind of always skirted around that area, because when I really thought about it, it was working with people, it was challenging unfairness, And at that time as well, in 2010, you know, being disabled wasn't a particularly easy position to be in at that point because of some of the media and some of the politicians around at the time. And also the fact that, you know, I had 3 visually impaired children myself, and they were getting closer and closer to looking at the you know, employment themselves. So eventually, having gotten my legal diploma, I found myself still in the position, couldn't get a legal traineeship. I was told that my voluntary work experience that I'd done over the years was enough to get interviews, but it didn't get me over the final line of actually getting a traineeship. So I then thought, well, okay, the other thing that I was interested in as well, that was going to possibly happen a wee bit later than that, was to possibly get involved in local politics. So I went along for selection thinking, well, it'll be a good experience this time. Got chosen as one of the ward, eventually this led to me being selected, and then twice now I've actually, having not been able to succeed in an interview panel between 2 and 4 people, twice now I've had an interview panel of up to 12,500 electors, and I've been successful. And that to me, you know, it was a really, really great experience, because it covered all aspects of what I really was interested in. Not only that, I actually got to be involved in local decision making as well. And it got me being able to do the casework that I really loved doing as a law student and as a student advisor in the law clinic that I volunteered for. And you know, the best fill of all for me, and I think, you know, that was inclusion ultimately, was, you know, when I was talking to some of my constituents and you'd be dealing with the issue for them, and they'd just suddenly come around and say, "Are you blind?" And I just thought they saw me first and they didn't see the label. So I'm going to come back to my analogy now of the ingredients, because I do think the ingredients for success haven't got better, and that they definitely are changing. But I was actually, you know, I almost feel like I was a lucky shopper, because whilst I was an elected member in 2015, I was looking for a disability summit that had been arranged, and I'll never ever forget the date, the 16th of June 2015. And if anybody was lucky to find it and attend, well done, because I've never found it yet. But I came across a Disabled Graduates Professional Careers Programme being run by a disabled organisation in conjunction with the Scottish Government and NHS Scotland. And that basically allowed for 22 disabled people to be placed in all of each one in all of the 22 boards across Scotland. And again, you know, I don't think we've really mentioned too much about the use of positive action, although some of the elements of today really do reflect the use of positive action. Because for me, what that placement allowed for me in NHS Tayside was, I've been visually impaired all my life, so that's my screen reader. That's a reasonable adjustment till I need to do my job. So you know, I've been blind all my life, so I knew once I got into employment the equipment that I needed and what the issues for me would be. But having got to this stage, I've obviously had to be fairly resilient and pretty quick on my feet at problem solving as well. So when I started in NHS Tayside, I think the fact that the Disabled People's Organisation, which was supporting the traineeship along with NHS Scotland, it was my board that probably needed as much or more support than I actually did. And just through what I was doing with my traineeship resulted in me being permanently employed in NHS Tayside. So there's definitely you know, a lot of value in what you put into a scheme, what you put in supporting organisations, people supporting others really is quite helpful. Because I think for me, I went far too long thinking, you know, I could do this on my own. And well, I might have got, I think that the geography has probably changed a good bit and for the better as well. But I think, you know, we've heard this afternoon from the other speakers, there's a lot out there to help employers support people with disabilities get in to employment. But I think, you know, and Nadia really touched on it, and I was really delighted, Nadia, with part of your presentation, because it just really dovetails what I wanted to say now as well. The business benefits of employing people with disabilities, you are going to be, your employees are going to be more representative of the population you serve. But, you know, coming back also to my experience issue at the beginning, you know, the lack of experience in employment, to me, works both ways in terms of us looking for employment, but also employers not necessarily feeling that they have the experience to appoint disabled applicants either. And I used to joke that when I went for my legal traineeship or interviews, that I knew immediately from how nervous the person was meeting me to go in to the interview, the likelihood of success that that interview was going to be. So I can tell you now, since 2015, everybody doing their manual handling training at NHS Tayside, not only did they learn about hoists, etc., but they're all taught sighted guiding as well. So, you know, anybody with a visual impairment in Tayside Hospital should hopefully now feel a wee bit safer and more secure and confident that they're being guided properly. But I think, you know, in finishing for me, the fact that I'm now an HR advisor with remit for equality and diversity, I'm now able to use the experience that I've had as, well, first of all, working in equal opportunities in the 1990s, I used the law skills that I got as well doing the degree, but also the personal experiences. And, you know, because I think sometimes we look at recruitment firms, we look at policies, and, you know, we then also, certainly in the public sector, we start looking at our equalities data and go, oh, why is this group underrepresented? And especially for disabled applicants, I think just because you have a policy or the job's been advertised in different places and you've got an application form that people can actually read and fill in, it doesn't necessarily create flat pack ready disabled employees that are going to immediately apply and be appointed. Yeah, I think it's actually the fact that people have joined here today shows that already people have got an interest in thinking differently. But I would say again, Nadia mentioned talent, and she also mentioned the value of personal experiences. But I think, you know, rather than having a rigid view about the level of experience being shown or not being shown, we need to be more flexible still in the future. And I hope this ingredient becomes more standard in the recipe, is that we need to look at potential, we need to look at talent, and we need to look at growing that individual. So certainly, in closing, my experience has been fairly checkered, and it's been a kind of a long journey. Things are definitely progressing, but again, I think as Alison mentioned at the beginning, COVID now, we're in a more challenging period than we've ever been before. So it really, really is important that hopefully through hearing what people have heard today, that we can put all these component parts together, and the employment of disabled people will be much easier for future generations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sheila. That was a really good insight into your experience, and certainly I think a lot of food for thought for some employers out there as well. Okay, we're heading into the breakout rooms now. For those of you who have not used breakout rooms before, what will happen is you will get an invitation to join the breakout room. We've got Marta and Michael from the DYW team hosting one room, and Lynn hosting the other room, with some chamber team supporting on the tech side as well. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms just now. And if you just accept that invitation, you'll basically transport into a similar room to this. Okay, I think that's everybody in. I'm just going to invite each group's DYW host just to come in and just kind of give everybody a kind of overview of what was discussed. And we'll move on to the next room. If there are any questions that we've got time for, then please feel free to fire them over. If not, any questions that we don't get onto, then like I say, we can fire them out to the relevant speakers and try and capture some of that information from you. So Lynn, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for attending today, absolutely, and for contributing to the discussions. We picked up a question that had been posed during the presentations, which had come from John to Nadia regarding how do you know what you're doing is any good, and how do you make sure you're not leaving anybody behind? So we got a good, that explained nice and clearly about how they do a couple of things. Part of it is very targeted recruitment. So they will go to community centres, they'll advertise posts through jobs centres as well. They go out and do some of that early recruitment engagement. There we say where people who are normally excluded will be, as a very positive action to include them. And yes, they are absolutely gathering data and looking and measuring at how each stage of the recruitment process has worked. Although it's not shared at this stage, it is something that will be shared at a later point by Social Security Scotland. But I think maybe the main message that came out of that was about employees trusting employers either to share data or to believe that if they are sharing, data about the circumstances, it won't be used at some stage against them, that is aggregated responses opposed to individual responses. The other thing that we had a bit of a talk about was employer engagement generally, and some of the delegates in our group do employer engagement. So for instance, Abertay University careers officer Ricky was talking about that, and Maureen from Enable. And again, just to generally sum up, yeah, employers are still engaging, and some very willingly, able to. Advantage, I suppose, of COVID change and how we are making adjustments overall was in terms of career fairs, that they can now be to a national audience, whereas before it would have been coming in person to one place. So Ricky talked a bit about that. And Maureen was saying, and I think this is, everybody was agreeing, in terms of workforce planning and in terms of recruitment drives, or when are people going to start needing to recruit again, employers don't know that. So that's a bit of a sticking point at the moment. While they're happy to engage with us, they don't know when they're going to want to take on more staff. And yeah, to be mindful that in terms of recruiting people with additional needs, for some employers that maybe be just now a bit more of a challenge, because they may see additional resources or time going in to recruit somebody with those additional needs. That's something we need to, get across, that actually a little bit of extra effort now will pay rewards in the future because of having a diverse workforce, and we know the business benefits of having a diverse workforce. So those were the main things that we talked about, and just how I think we're all getting a bit Zoom fatigued, and that again might be cutting across engagement from employers a little bit. Not as many sign-ups to events as Maureen was suggesting earlier. So that was it from our group. So I'll pass you over to the other units.
Thank you. Marta, where are you? There.
Hello. Yeah, so we had a really good discussion in our group. We were just kind of picking the brains of the speakers who had given presentations at the beginning, and we had good discussions around disability confident, just asking some more questions about it in terms of can, like, for example, a university sign up, what types of limits are there on organisations, and basically any organisation can sign up regardless of size. And Eileen gave an example of, like, a big national chain like Boots, for example, could sign up, but then individual, like, local stores could also sign up and work their way through the levels. And also, interestingly, that there's actually only 4 disability leaders in the North East district, and they're all in Perth. So I think we need to do some work to get some leaders in Dundee and get some more up there. And also, yeah, just kind of general discussions around kind of Kickstart. And also it was brought up that Bernardo's work are also a gateway for Kickstart as well as obviously the council and chamber and things. But yeah, just good questions, good discussion. That was it from us.
Perfect. Were there any questions that weren't answered? Has anybody got anything that they want to ask before we close?
Sorry, could I quickly ask? I think it was Tracy that spoke about access to work, was it?
Eileen,
it was one. I had always thought that access to work was you could only kind of apply for it when the person was going into work. Did I pick these up wrong when you said you can't access it when you're looking for work as well?
Yeah, you can. It's not just for when you're in work, it's when you're looking for work as well. So like an interpreter to accompany you to an interview, that sort of thing. So yes, it's not just people in work, it's people looking for work as well.
That's quite interesting, Eileen, because for years I've always thought it was when you were getting into work, so that's good to know.
Right. Okay. No problem. And I said the gov.uk website again, I know we keep mentioning that, but you know, absolutely loads of information in there for you to have a look at.
I'll do that, yeah. Perfect.
If nobody's got anything else, then if obviously people do, you know, kind of think of questions afterwards, or you know, want signposted to any of the speakers, then just get in touch, and we can certainly do that afterwards. On you go then.
just to round up, to let everybody know that we will be sending out post-event packs that will have copies of presentations as well as contact details, and we really encourage you to go off. And all these people that came and contributed today and did the presentations are going to be looking for emails and queries from you, so keep them busy. So please do follow that up. The other thing I don't think was mentioned anywhere, but just to throw in at the very last moment, is to make folk aware of the Job Start Fund, if I've got that all right. That's a Social Security Scotland benefit, and it's for young people when they're starting a job, if they've been unemployed for a period of time and they need money for particular things. And Nadia, I think, will keep me right in that.
Job Start Grant.
Job Start Grant, thank you.
Yes, you can find that information on our website.
Brilliant. So certainly in terms of intermediaries that are right there, be aware that there is this new and additional payment for young people starting work if they have work-related expenses for starting that. And there will be loads and loads of stuff for young people, so I'm sure we'll all regroup again at some stage and get that messaging out there. But that's me. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chamber and Copper, for hosting this and doing it.
Just leaves me to thank all of our speakers. I'm sure there was a lot of information there that people now need to digest. Like Lynn says, that pack will be in your inbox within the next couple of days, so feel free to go through it and make contact with anybody who's been on the call today if you're looking to take things further as part of your organisation. So thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.